Now, time to look at what the papers, both local and international, are saying on their front pages. And we'll have here with us this morning Dr. Constance Ikokwe, journalist, political commentator, and an analyst. Glad to have you join us this morning, Constance.
Thanks, Ndy. Good morning. A very good morning to you, Adesu, as well.
Good morning.
Great. Well, to review the papers with us this morning, we have Chuks Akunna. He's the Executive Director of Authority newspaper. Thanks for joining us, Chuks.
Looks like
all right, he will join us in a bit. Yeah, go on, Constance.
Okay, hello then, welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day newspaper. In this day, NUPRC, Oando NAOC deal followed due process, complied with extant rules. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, yesterday said the approval of the divestment deal between Oando and Nigerian Egypt company followed due process. NUPRC says it's committed to transparency and believes in the right of the public to know about its regulatory activities. As far as the divestment by Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited to Seplat Energy Offshore Limited, which article said was being unduly delayed, NUPRC said it is also currently undergoing the same consent approval process. I mean, this divestment deal between Oando and Egypt has been a subject of discussion, especially in light of the fact that Oando is run by a president's relation, Wale Tinubu. So the suggestion is that the sale was fast-tracked using presidential powers in the interest of the family. The government regulator says otherwise. They had to speak up, given the size of the deal, given what it means, and given the concerns that have been expressed. I don't know if Chuks is with us. If not yet, Chuks, are you with us now?
All right.
Not yet. Okay, so Ndu, I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, let's just, here's the thing. Opposition is supposed to work in a democracy, and article belongs to the opposition. So on their side, they're doing what they should do. There are two deals here. You have that of Oando and Nauk, and then you have that of Seplat.
No, Seplat is different because it hasn't been approved.
Yeah, no,
so the issue is
there's an issue on it too, which they are saying that on that score they are still on it. It takes 120 days, before, so they are on track according to PIA. But this one they're saying there was nothing like fast tracking, that they followed due course. So, like I said, is their word against the opposition? Former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar. So he's left. He's doing what he should do. Another organization should do this so that government is transparent. We know what they are doing. So, like I said, is their word against Atiku, but the opposition is doing what it should do.
I mean, outside opposition or what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has to say, this has been a conversation actually in the in these circles, because this deal went through quite fast, and so there are critics of general discussion and the view that if it wasn't because of the president, it wouldn't have been pulled through this fast, and that's why examples have been given as regard to the other deal which had been on the table and hasn't come through, Adesua.
Yeah, well, what I just want to say on this story is that it's good to see that the regulators are speaking up, and we must commend former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who is putting the feet of the administration to fire on several issues. You hear him speak up. Whether he has his facts or not is left to the jury to decide. But then again, you see him ensure that, you see him making the headlines, you see him bring up these topics, and then the regulator, the administration, eventually will respond. And that's what has happened in this instance. They have given their side of the story to say, here's a breakdown. This is how it happened. Yes, this deal had passed through, but others, this is why they have had hiccups on the way. Because former Vice President is saying that there were several deals, and he mentioned two other deals that had been on the table. And he wonders why they didn't get accelerated passing, such as the Oando deal, which we all know belongs to the president's relation, as you have mentioned, the nephew of the president, Tinubu, Wale Tinubu, I believe that's his name. Yes. So that's what has happened in this instance. I don't think we've heard the last of it anyways.
Well,
Yeah,
we have.
yeah, you have, yeah.
Chooks is now
Yeah.
available
Right.
here.
He's not available.
Right. Okay, I'll get Chooks into the next story. Let's look at The Guardian. Tinubu hints at economic recovery amid inflation deficit concerns. Nigeria spends 225% of revenue in 2023 as deficit rises to 13.5 trillion naira. FG Services death with 8.56 trillion naira in 2023. GDP growth blinds economic reality, according to Onyekpere. While President Tinubu hailed the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics on the state of the economy, which saw the country's gross national product posting new growth. But there are concerns about the economic reality on the ground as it relates to high inflation and fiscal indiscipline within the administration. According to the NBS, the real GDP growth was 3.2% year-on-year in Q2, higher than 2.51% in the same period in 2023. I mean, a bit of a movement right here in terms of GDP growth compared to last year. But it's really marginal and may not necessarily have that huge impact. In reality, you want to be posting at least 10% growth consistently over a long period of time. Chooks.
Yes, exactly. You echoed my sentiments. But the truth is that no matter what the president intends to do, such cannot be done in a vacuum. Insecurity has plagued Nigeria over the past 10 or so years. Tinubu inherited a very, very comatose economy. But then that was why there was a glimmer of hope yesterday when the president changed, when there was a change of guards in two security chiefs, the NIA and the DSS. Because without security, without securing the lives of Nigerians, Nigerians might not be free to move around to actually engage in economic activities that will heighten our GDP. We all know that it's been a huge problem, and for President Tinubu to have taken the bold step of changing two spy chiefs yesterday, particularly Tosin Ajayi, who is the new helmsman at the DSS. It's always been a case of putting round pegs in square holes. But yesterday, President Tinubu took a very bold step, because for those who know about the relationship between Tinubu and Bichi, the outgone DGSSS, you agree with me that it has been a very, very difficult decision for Tinubu to make, given the reported support Bichi gave him before the elections. But now we have a new helmsman, particularly in the DSS, Tosin Ajayi, a man so much has been said about. He was very, very instrumental in the arrest of Raf Uwazurike in 2004 in Imo State. He's a thoroughbred professional, and we hope he'll be able to bring his wealth of knowledge and experience in being a spy chief around Nigeria to bear on Nigeria, because we really need to secure Nigeria. And over the past 4 or 5 years, the DSS has taken a backbench in securing the lives of Nigerians. Without security, there's no way we can grow our GDP, Dr. Constance.
You're correct, Chooks. Indeed, without security, it's difficult to have economic progress. Let's look again at that Guardian report, very detailed. It looks at the GDP per capita of 10 largest economies in the world. We have the largest here, USA, $28.8 trillion. And then the list here, Canada, is $2.2 trillion. And by the corner here, it says, based on IMF's estimates, Nigeria's GDP in US dollars actually declined from 477 billion in 2022. Today, it is 253 billion in 2024. So a lot of work here for us to do, Ndi. It's a long way.
Indeed, a long way to go. But like you heard Chuk say, drops of water fill the ocean. But the president, I don't know whether to use the word gloating, but you expect that. He's talking about it and saying, he told us in his broadcast that the economy is recovering, But then he adds that Nigerians will soon begin to feel, to see, and to enjoy. And that's the crux of the matter. And Nigerians feeling, seeing, and enjoying it. Yeah, you may say, okay, over time, but that's where the crux of the matter is. Nigerians are not interested particularly in those figures, how does it relate to the market woman? How does it relate to the father and the mother when they go to buy things in the market? That's what is important and key here.
Right. Sometimes GDP growth does not necessarily translate to improved standards of living. You know, we've seen that before. Let's move on to Daily Trust. 21 states seek 1.65 trillion naira loans despite 40% rise in FAC revenues. These loans are to fund budget deficits. That's Daily Trust. From June 2023 to June this year, the 36 states and the 774 local governments received a total of 7.6 trillion from FAC. The 36 states will receive 5.5 trillion this year as against 3.3 trillion disbursed at the same time last year. I mean, every country borrows to plug financial loopholes from time to time, but the worry is that when loans almost become the main source of revenue, it's problematic because in the long run, it's not sustainable and governments might be required to administer austerity measures or cut public services, and that's where the citizens suffer chokes.
And I'm sure Daily Trust must have had the immediate past governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, in mind. You know, when Nasir El-Rufai, as governor of Kaduna State, had tried to obtain a foreign loan, you know, interestingly, the current governor, Obasani, was chairman Senate Committee on Banking, and he vouched for El-Rufai, saying that people should hold him responsible if should El-Rufai not fail to implement, to use the loans for the purposes for which they were meant. And we've seen stories coming out from Kaduna, the less than statutory stories coming out from Kaduna State. So it's not about, like you said, it's not about borrowing. You know, every country in the world borrows. Everybody borrows. But then the crux of the matter is, what do you do with these monies when you borrow? Particularly in the light of what Daily Trust reported, you know, increased FAC. But then also, when you're talking about increased FAC, FAC is a naira. And then most of the projects we handle in Nigeria are denominated in, most of the contractors, you know, they look at the dollar element of the contract. So yes, increased FAC allocation, but then you ask yourself, what really is the value of this of the naira, given the dip in the value of the naira over the past 2-3 years?
That's why too much borrowing leads to limited fiscal flexibility and economic vulnerability. There has to be other ways to run an economy, especially at the state level.
Indeed, and you know, that's why we cannot stop clamoring for, you know, the searchlights to be beamed on the subnationals as well, because for too long we haven't done enough with that. So there has been an increase in FAC allocation thanks to subsidy removal, and this report details how much these states and the local governments have been getting since the removal of subsidy. And you know, one interesting thing I picked up from this report story from the Daily Trust, by the way, we commend them, putting out those figures there. They also put, for instance, they painted a scenario to say, if they pass the threshold of the 1 trillion naira of getting FAC allocations in recent times. And they painted a picture to say that, given the World Health Organization standard of building public health care centers of 500 million, they said the World Health Organization did say that 500 million can build you something decent and equipped. And Daily Trust is saying, if these state governments had budgeted only 20% of what they got, by now Nigeria should have had over 36 or thereby, I may be missing these figures now, but over 36 new primary healthcare centers. Imagine what that would do. So like you say, and like Chuks have said, I re-echo that to say there's no problem in borrowing. But what are you borrowing for? How viable is it? Can you repay those loans? Imagine us borrowing to pay salaries. It doesn't make any sense. No. And while we go borrowing, we should be careful, because now we have seen a precedent where a Chinese company can decide to wake up and seize whatever they like to seize. Let us not, you know, borrow in a way that one day Nigerian citizens will begin to be seized abroad. It may be funny, but it is serious. What are we doing with these monies that we are borrowing? If you look further at that report, it shows the pattern of borrowing that the states want to go into. And I'm looking at those states. Anambra, it says, is ready to borrow 245 billion naira, followed by Imo State, which has the second largest of borrowing plan of 271.34 billion naira. Oyo State comes third in that list of the 21 states by Daily Trust with a 133.4 billion naira. We would like to see what the states are borrowing for. It will be interesting that the citizens can feel and see, what these loans are doing.
Right. A lot of talk. We hope that the people that are supposed to be hearing this are listening. Let's look at Punch newspaper. WASC. ASU NUT differ as FG bans under 18 candidates. You also have the same story in the Vanguard. Vanguard headline is more dramatic. It says, outrage as FG pegs age for writing WASC at 18 years. The Nigerian Union of Teachers have condemned the federal government's decision to ban under 18 candidates for sitting for West African Senior School Certificate Examination and the National Examination Council, even as the Academic Staff Union of Universities back this policy. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, says, if you compute the age from primary to secondary school up until these exams, you end up with 17 and a half. By the time you're ready for admission, it means you can also not sit for JAMB when you are under 18. I mean, this argument has been on for a while, but the critics said this policy is not taking into consideration the changing times. Most times these days, both parents work, they put their students or their children in crèche, and they're learning early. And then there are students that are exceptionally brilliant and can finish school quite early. Why do you want to drag them back, Chooks? It's a policy that is being contested by some.
Yes, exactly. That's the problem you have when you appoint ancestors as in charge of affairs of your country.
Indeed.
When I looked at Tahir graduated, I think, about 29 or 30 years from university. So apparently he will be seeing the whole Nigeria from this prism. And, we've always spoken about appointing round pegs in round holes. And Tahir, the last time I checked, he's a lawyer. He's not an educationist. And it does a very great deal of disservice to appoint a lawyer as an educationist. If you do not have a degree or certificate in education in Nigeria, you can't teach. So I wonder why somebody who has no education, who has no experience in education, be appointed to head education ministry. Even during the military regime, we had a very, very distinguished professor of education, Babs Fafunwa, as the Minister of Education. So what is gone wrong with Nigeria that you appoint ancestors who apparently live in the 60s and the 50s, like Dr. Constance rightly pointed out? Times have changed. Personally, I finished secondary school at 15, and I passed I passed my school certificate with distinction. So we have different abilities. What the federal government should be talking about is how to talk about extracurricular education. I mean, what do you call this? Skills acquisition. Federal government should come up with programs to teach children that, okay, when you're in secondary school, you should learn one craft, because that's where the world is tilting to. So instead of coming out with this policy that was apparently mouthed in 30, 40 years ago, times have changed, like you really pointed out. So we must learn to move with the times.
A lot of people say that it's poorly conceived. I personally, I skipped one class in primary school. I took secondary school exams early enough. So there's so many students like this. So why limit them?
Yeah, well, the Minister of Education is even saying that this is not. I mean, the paper is reporting it banned, but he's even saying that it's been there. It's not banned. The question that arises here is, because I see what he's trying to do, or what they helped at NUT and ASU are disagreeing, the fact of maturity, going through school and letting school go through you, being able to mature in terms of, how you face challenges. But then the other side of the coin, you speak about people who may be geniuses, people who are fast in learning. So I don't know, if it's been there, then there's no question of banning it.
There wasn't a ban specifically before.
Well,
he says by the time you go through school, you land. Most people land at this particular age.
Yeah,
17.
because I mean,
because of the band, which is the 6334 policy.
If you see the analysis, it does make sense. But then the question is, for people who are fast, how do you handle them? Even though we
Right.
know what they're trying to achieve, go through school so school can go through you. So you can be matured to face the challenges, because when people are too young, some challenges come. It's not just about reading, about studying, about having intelligence. It's also about being able to face challenges.
So Adesu, I'll bring you into the next story. Let's look at the international headlines. The Citizen, South Africa. Chinese medical help tackles backlogs. Aiming to clear backlogs in the Western Cape. Peace Ark, a Chinese national hospital ship, part of the People's Liberation Army Navy, providing human services and medical assistance globally, has successfully processed 1,300 patients with medical staff, and they have also performed some operations here in South Africa. The fully fledged naval medical vessel has been providing services to local community of Cape Town and outskirts. I mean, well, it looks like the Chinese are toying the path of Western countries by deploying soft power to win over hearts and minds, particularly in Africa, when it's been having an aggressive policy of building ties and exploiting resources for its emerging economy. Oh, it's almost a world power now, Adesua.
Yeah, it's all geopolitics. We've seen that on the continent of Africa, when it comes to infrastructure, you see Chinese written a lot when it comes to the African continent, but they haven't been able to do so much as to aid, really. They've been doing, but not as much compared to the West, where the US, still takes tops when it comes to providing aid to Africa and, Asia and Middle East. So there's a scramble for Africa, whether in whatever sector you are looking at. Africa, we always say, is the new bride, and there's always give and take. So the Chinese have found a way to bring in this ship that you say has birthed and is now providing services. During COVID-19, we saw that despite the backlash of the virus emerging from China, China still tried to find its footing in providing help and succor to parts of the world. This is not any different. I feel it's geopolitics wearing a different face.
I mean, Chooks, China has done a spectacular job of rising from poverty within 4 decades to almost wiping out the scourge. And here we are, almost the same size of economy with the US. US is the world biggest economy today. China is the second. And it looks like they are really running to surpass that the US, and Africa is crucial to them in order to do this. And that's why you're seeing this, Chooks.
I guess China realized how important colonization of countries in Africa really helped the West. The West wouldn't have developed the way they have, but had it been for Africa. So I think China is trying to get a piece of the pie, by look at Nigeria. Over the past 10 years, we've seen the gradual influx of domination of Chinese construction firms in Nigeria, and China is emerging one of the biggest trading partners of Nigeria. And you wouldn't blame China. China is doing very, very well from a very, very relatively poor country over the past 30 years. China is now the second largest economy in the world. And look at AI in China, look at the automobile industry in China. China is giving the West a run for its money. And China realizes that Africa is the continent that has the highest amount of mineral resources. So China is trying to give dango carrots before Africa, so they can reap the benefits of African continent.
Run out of time, but just to mention Financial Times, top defense contractors poised for $52 billion cash bonanza as orders soar. The largest aerospace and defense company are set to rake in record levels of cash. When it bleeds, some smile to the bank. And this is to be expected on account of all the ongoing conflicts and wars in the country. Isn't it an irony that the tragedy of some and the catastrophe of war is a benefit to some industries? That's what we are saying.
All right, just before we let you go, August 30th will mark the end of the transfer window in sports. EPL is back, Man City on top, Brighton follows, and of course for the Gunners fans, they're third. Thank you so much, Constance, for being on the program this morning, and thank you to Chooks Akunaidi, Authority Newspaper. I am Ndi Amogo, thanking you for watching. Next, the morning show, and like every day, here does indeed matter.
I am Adesua Moran. Good morning. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Bye.